This is the dopamine cotta. Fresh dopamine.
You would have thought that things would have changed, but they still sell us saviors and still let them weigh us down. You think we're just a link in the chain, but they still separate us and still want to break us down. We're still on a journey in the making, our purpose for the shaping. It's not too late to turn around. So let them put the world in the matrix, control the information, exposing the game in town. I specialize in particle physics and time folds. I got numbers big enough to swallow a god whole.
Hey everybody, this is Sam from Out of the Armchair Podcast. Tonight we're welcoming our good friend Andrew Stryker. But before we get started, if you like what you see tonight, click on that YouTube channel and click subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything we do. Also, you can find us on Facebook at Out of the Armchair Podcast, on Instagram, Out of the Armchair Podcast, all one word, and Twitter at Of Armchair. Now, if you were with us before, sorry about the interruption. We were talking about this great Scotch that Andrew brought for us tonight. It's a very sweet, very smooth type of Scotch, Dwarves blended Scotch whiskey, white label, true Scotch.
Absolutely. If you enjoy whiskey or Scotch, you gotta try it out.
See if you can get a picture of that. Light's probably too bright. Anyhow, so Andrew, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry for the blackout.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll roll on.
So you're running for Elkhart City Council District 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we always want to give your constituents a chance to kind of get to know who you are as a person, not necessarily commercial on the news or on the radio or the short clips that press try to put out for candidates.
Right.
And often your local government is very personal and very reachable, and so. Tell us a little bit about you. I know you're a family man, and
right. I'm married. I've been married for 7 years to a wonderful woman named Tamara. Hi, Tamara, if you're watching again. I know you're having a watch party. I have 2 children. Adeline, she's 7, and Logan, he's 6. I work for a small steel shop here in Elkhart. I operate a laser cuts through steel. It's called MG Products. It's a family shop, and my sister-in-law's husband and his family own it. And I love it. I love working there, and I love their family. They're a really great family, and they treat their employees really good, which is really awesome, because you get some of these bigger companies that they're just treated like a number.
Yeah.
And here now you're treated like family, and I really appreciate that. I grew up in Goshen, and when I graduated, I realized I got a job in a factory when I graduated. And I realized that's not all I wanted to do with my life. So in 2007, I joined the National Guard. And later on that year, in December, we mobilized for Iraq, and we spent 9 months in 2008 over there conducting convoy operations. Convoy logistics patrols is what they would call it.
So explain that to people just a little bit here.
Okay, so a convoy logistics patrol is transporting supplies from one point to another. So we were stationed at the biggest air base in the country. It was Joint Base Balad when I was there, or Camp Anaconda. And supplies would come in by plane, and then they could load up on semi-trucks, and we would escort about 30 semis to other bases that needed the supplies. So sometimes it was a big base, and sometimes a little fob out in the middle of nowhere.
So man, I've seen videos over there of those exact type of convoys, and they come under some heavy fire sometimes. Yeah, have you ever experienced anything like that over there? Or
when I got there,
is it all media coverage?
No. There were a lot of IEDs. That's mostly what we took. I think they learned that armored vehicles, you can't really shoot at with AKs and do anything to them.
Right.
So, but they would try to blow us up, and I personally only encountered like 1 or 2 bombs. But there were other vehicles in the convoys that would get hit. Usually we would find them, and they would either be placed on the other side of checkpoints, which would be kind of like a choke point. They had checkpoints set up on the routes you had to go through. Sometimes they would bury them in the ground. You wouldn't see them, and they go off. There was one time they put it in a dead cow, shoved it up its butt, and put it along the road.
Wow.
And we stopped, and we called EOD, come out, and they blew it up.
They blew up the dead cow?
They blew up the dead cow.
Put the bomb in its butt?
Yes, and it stank, and there was cow parts for weeks. And they had rabid dogs that run around, and they'd pick up parts of the cow, and you see them running around, parts of the cow in its mouth, the tail, the leg is... It's kind of crazy.
That's a whole different world over there.
Oh yeah.
A whole different world.
Oh yeah. So no one cleaned it up though. The EOD didn't clean it up. The people that lived nearby didn't touch it. Just sat there and rotted in the sun.
So do you think? Are they used to that kind of? Are they conditioned to that type of?
Yeah, I think so. It's a hard life over there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Extreme poverty. Most of their infrastructure was destroyed when the United States led their invasion to begin with. I mean, Saddam Hussein was horrendous, but they had some infrastructure in place, and when he fell out, it all just ended. So they didn't have running water, no sewer, no trash collection, none of that. So you drive around the country and you would just see trash everywhere. It was very common to see just trash. And I remember one time going into Baghdad, we went up on the Skyway, on the highway, and it seemed like for miles you could see plastic bags just covering the field, just everywhere. It was a crazy sight. It was like a sea of plastic bags, and it wasn't a landfill. They were just there.
They were just, so they like the people just that's where they left their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you gonna do with it?
Or yeah, I guess there's no real infrastructure there for
no
things
one
like
could
that.
take it. And then one of the other things that really got to me was the people there. They didn't have clean water, so they go drink out of sewage ditches. So when we drive by, like especially like at Iraqi army checkpoints, we would bring a case of water usually to give to those guys because they're out there risking their lives. And then we'd sometimes find children out there that need some water, so we'd always throw some of our water to them. And then sometimes they take it to their dad, and their dad would drink it in front of them. Like, hey, I didn't give it to you. I gave it to the kid. Like, what are you doing?
But and that's part of that infrastructure, that structure too. I think is the that's not coming down the mic. Is you know the way they view family over there. It's like the male is always the head of the.
It was. I remember one time for about 2 weeks we did tower guard, where we sat up in these giant towers around the base. We all had to take turns, and I remember during the day looking out in the fields because there's fields around the base, and the guys would be out the truck smoking and joking, and the women and the children would be out there in the fields actually doing the work.
Yeah, that's backwards.
It is. It's very backwards.
Yeah. Well, I guess we won't get into too much what roles are, but
right.
Yeah. So, how is it being a family man?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love my kids and I love my wife to death, and they're the reason why I do everything.
Yeah, we've been married 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we got four.
You
kids.
don't look like you're old enough to be married for 18 years.
No, I don't.
No.
You can tell as many people that as you want. Yeah, we've been married.
I will.
We've been married 18 years. We have 4 kids. 12, 8, 7, and 6 or 5.
Okay.
Baby girl's 5. So we have 3 boys and then baby girl. And I'll tell you one thing is having a kid. You know, if that doesn't change, you know, the man you are inside or the woman you are inside, like I don't think there's anything else on this planet that can.
No, I think you're right. And I remember when my daughter was born. It was like at that moment, it was almost like an instinctual thing, just like changed in my head. My whole world changed.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Now you got this little bitty person you got to look out for, and they're completely dependent on
Yeah.
you and mom. You know what I mean? And they, you know, both of them are kind of dependent on you at first to, you know, bring home the bread, and you know, especially while they're.
Yeah. Well, when we first got married, I was working as a nurse's aide, so I came back from Iraq right after the collapse of the economy, and there was no jobs to take. And I did a little bit of college, and there were some issues that happened there, and I decided I was just going to get a job, and I started working as a CNA. And I met my wife while doing that. We got married, and we had a baby, and I was still doing that job, making, you know, $10 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she ended up getting sick that she couldn't work. And for the next, well, she still doesn't work full time. She volunteers a lot. She's a big volunteer.
What's she do?
She volunteers at Saving Grace, the homeless outreach there at our church.
Oh, nice.
So she'll sometimes put, you know, 40 hours a week up there, depending. She kind of took a little bit of time off when her grandfather passed away this past fall. But I mean, I always tell her, I work hard enough and I make enough that you don't have to work. So don't get a job that you're just going to make money. Do something you enjoy.
If you want to do.
Yeah, so if you want to go make money, that's fine. If you want to volunteer, go do that. I'm here to support you.
That's cool that you get to offer that opportunity.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
but it helps that I make more money now than then. Because back then, when she was sick and she couldn't work, trying to raise a baby and a wife on $10 an hour,
yeah,
was not working.
So I've got a 21-year-old from before, you know, my wife and I. and I'm not gonna tell you how old I was when I had. That'll give away my age. But I got a 21-year-old, and when we had him, we were in a very desperate situation. We weren't very responsible. We were kids.
Right.
We weren't very responsible, and money wasn't always coming in. So I totally get what it's like trying to raise a kid in that type of environment. And life was pretty toxic for me back then too. So yeah, I was born and raised in Elkhart. I'm a native, and about as native as they get.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
I've
been on every street and in every creek and every nook and cranny in the city, and so I care about it very, very deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see you, one of the things that interested me, two posts that I seen that really interested me in you was you were talking about the fact that we had these grand structures that we're putting up around the downtown area. Excuse me. And not, I want to create a narrative where I think that that's a bad thing.
Right.
But in the light of that happening, we lost a very we lost a lot of the budget for a very, very important utility in our community, which was the Tolson Center.
Yeah. Well, you know what? They didn't lose it. They just decided not to fund that because that was only a $500,000 project, and last year they only needed like 200 to finish out the year. It was because they just didn't want to do it.
Right.
So, and they had 700. It was a $7 million surplus this year, I believe they had in the budget. So it had nothing to do with money. But so when I say that we're focusing too much on downtown, it's not that I don't like what they're doing downtown. It looks nice, but to me, it's almost like you're just kind of painting over the problems you have. You don't want to focus on the issues. You want to make pretty things for yourself. And to me, the city is not about the pretty things we have. It's about the people we have and in the lives they're living. And if we're not putting forth programs to help them out, or at least fixing up their neighborhoods, that's just the wrong answer.
Well, it's funny because, in the culture of the city, it's like my whole life has been, there's back in the 80s, there was this side of the track or that side of the track. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and you can still see it's prevalent now. I mean, if you just drive down Main Street, as soon as you cross those tracks, look at the change of the
oh yeah, no,
look of the city.
Agree, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be, I think a lot of the local politicians should really connect back with the community, the heart of the blue collar community, because a lot of the people that work in and around the RV industry, which supports our economy here, live in these neighborhoods. Whether people realize it or not, even if they don't work directly in the RV factories, they're working for some warehouse or some distributor, or they're providing some service to the RV industry around here. And I think that's something that's often forgotten, left out of the city conversation, downtown. And like I said, you could just cross the tracks and see the complete culture difference.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael's pawn shop down there. I mean, that whole area, Elkhart Stereo used to be down there, and I mean, and all these. There was a lot of businesses down there, but it's almost like, even though there's some businesses still in there, when you drive past it, it's like a dead part of the city.
They're all closed up.
Yeah, and I don't understand how, a block away, we're gonna have the Elkhart Hotel.
Right.
The re-infrastructure of that. And then even, 2-3 more blocks down the road, you've got this grand theater, and then just behind that, we're gonna have this big, huge luxury apartment place.
Yeah, and when I see those things, it's nice that we do those. It's nice we have them. But how many people in the city actually go to the theater? I've never gone to a show at the theater.
I can't say that.
You've been there?
Oh, but I'm a fan of the theater.
I'm just saying, but I've talked to people. I'm like, a lot of people, even conservatives, they don't like that they put money into that. Now, I'm not saying it was the wrong answer, but I think they're looking at the rest of the city. Even when I bring up why they spend so much money downtown and not looking at the rest of the city, they will agree. And it's not a political issue, but city council is making it a political issue. At least some of them on the council are.
Yeah, it seems like we had a really nasty year with the city council. I mean, even with the people. I mean, they had one of the biggest turnouts, I think, in council history over the Tolson Center, and a couple other issues. We had the crossing guard issue. I mean, there's several issues that have been brought up, and the community has really showed up in big numbers for it, to say, hey, we don't want this to be like, especially with the Tolson Center.
And they're being ignored.
And they're being completely ignored. And I don't understand. It's like, if you're elected into a position, even if you represent a certain district in the city, you need to pay attention to what's going on in the other districts to come to form a good consensus
Well,
step forward.
what I heard from some people that have been in those meetings is basically the members who voted against Tolson. They said, "Well, I don't use it, so I don't care."
Right. But and that's yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying is even if you're not governing that district, if you're not representing that district,
you got to take care of the whole city.
right? Because your neighbor is your next most important.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when I grew up here, we were still playing tag and hide and go seek. We were still tubing in the river. I mean, it was a great city for a kid to grow up in. I had more freedom than most, but I got to see a lot more than most. Hitchens said one time he burned a candle at both ends, but it put off a beautiful glow. And that was kind of my life growing up. It was like I was everywhere. I was in every neighborhood. It didn't matter what neighborhood it was. I was there. And so I got to see a lot of the neat stuff in the culture, the really embedded blue collar culture of the city. And that was a beautiful thing for me, swimming down at High Dive and just having these areas that all the kids knew they could go to. And it seems like we've developed downtown in such a way that it's almost uncomfortable for the people, like you were saying, the people who actually live and work in and around Elkhart. It's not something that is serving as a utility to them necessarily.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
And not that I think arts and culture is it's a big deal.
It is important. It's important to have an area you live in that looks nice. I think that does. I mean, it's not going to change people's lives, but at least I would feel better living in an area that looked nice. And I think most people would too. It makes them feel like the city actually gives a shit about them.
Right. Yeah. And you don't see that over on the south side.
No.
And that's it'd be nice to have a voice in there to say, okay, well, let's look at this.
Right. And I know Brent Curry and Dwight Fish, they are both voicing their opinion about that, and they're fighting for that. And I know you said you're going to have them on your podcast later.
Yeah, I've been talking to Dwight about coming on. And last time I talked to him about it, it was right in the middle of controversy with Windbigler.
Yeah.
And I thought, he thinks maybe I was going to drill him about that, but me and Dwight have quite a bit in common, and I really respect him, and I think he's a champion of the community.
He is.
The way he operates and the way he actually connects with his constituents and people in and around his neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chance to talk with him a little bit this morning at our county party meeting, and I'm going to be having coffee with him either next week or the week after, kind of discuss, exactly what his opinion is. But no, just the way he talks and all that, I trust the guy, and I think he's absolutely moving in the right direction for that area.
Yeah, he's got his people in mind for sure.
Yeah,
and he wants to make sure they're represented. And I don't see, I would challenge anybody to show me another councilman that takes action the way that Dwight does. I mean, we can sit here all night and talk about that guy.
Right.
He's a great guy. I couldn't say enough great things about. Thank you, Dwight. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for being a great champion in the community, especially as a local politician. You're much appreciated by very, very many. So, so if you're running for city council, so what? I had Tom on here. We talked about he's more interested in kind of reshaping the budget. And utilizing the budget in a more effective way. So what do you think that you're going to be bringing to the council that's going to kind of change the narrative of what's been going on down there?
Well, I guess I would just say my experience with the military. I have a lot of experience. I was in the National Guard for 11 years. And I know it was part-time, but I took it serious. I was full-time training. I was full-time studying. They gave me all kinds of additional duties. So I was an infantry squad leader for 5 years. And on top of that, every time they needed a new task done, I would be like, I'll do it. You need an instructor, I'll go learn whatever you need me to instruct. You need someone to be a career counselor, okay, I'll do that. You need a retention officer, okay, I'll do that. So I wore a lot of different hats and learned how to talk to a lot of different people. Let me tell you, trying to talk a soldier into re-enlisting is not the easiest thing in the world. And they give you a script that you're supposed to stick by and talk to them and try to convince them. And I learned you can't do that. You have to sit them down and go over their life. So what's going on in your life? Do you have health insurance? We have TRICARE. Did you know you could have There's soldiers that went through 6 years. They didn't know they had health insurance available to them. There were soldiers that went through 6 years of being in the Guard. They didn't know they had education benefits. So I was like, look, there's benefits here. So if you have other issues, like what's up with work? Do you need some time off? Do you like being an infantryman? Do you want to do something else? Let's find you a different job. So I would kind of take it the same way with the city, and talking to people in the neighborhoods, not this is what I want to do. Even though I have things I want to do, it's more talking to them like, what are the issues that are facing you? Like, this is what interests me. Like, do you agree with that? And what do you think we should be doing? Because they live here. It's their home too.
Yeah, you said something real interesting to me when we were talking about my nonprofit before we got started on the
Yeah.
show, where you just kind of wanted, it's not that you wanted to get in and necessarily maneuver within the nonprofit, but say, okay, you've done the research, you've done the study, you know what the situation is.
Right.
How can the city be of assistance to bettering that effort?
Yeah, and I don't think the city understands the absolute gems they have of organizations and volunteers and people that are in the city working every day to do great things. Like you and your Narcan thing. Like, the city needs to be working more with that. The homeless situation. They have so many organizations out there trying to help people either not be homeless or prevent them from becoming homeless and then get them off the streets. And I talk to them all the time, like, what are your ideas? What are your plans? And they have all these big, good plans. It's just they don't have the resources available or the city's in their way. And sometimes they'll have people from the city come and talk to them. And most of the time it's just to tell them, we don't care.
So, I will say one thing about Tim Neese, and I always talk a lot really good about Tim Neese. I've had really good experiences with him in the past. And one of the things that I think he tried to do that I've never seen a lot of mayors do, and especially like when you look at South Bend and how they approach the homeless, the tent city over there, and then the way Mayor Neese approached the tent city situation here, I thought was outstanding. I mean, and he went really above and beyond. I mean, you're talking about homelessness. He offered jobs.
Yeah, I heard that. I think he got 10 people jobs at one time. The gentleman that were living out in the woods, he went and gave them. But before they kicked him out, I believe that's when he got 10 of them jobs, which was awesome. And from what I hear, Tim Neese is wanting to do something like that. There's members on the council that are trying to pretend they're the mayor and tell him what to do.
Oh, he's been battling them the whole time he's been there.
Yes. So, and I've even asked him about Dave Miller, the Republican running, and they've even said that he would be on board with doing some stuff. So, I mean, it's not a political issue. It's just you have certain members on the board that for whatever reason, they just hate this issue.
I don't like Dave Miller for the next mayor.
I'm
just going to come out and say
I don't either. I'd rather Ashley Bowling Molyneux or Rod Robertson.
Yeah. I just friend requested her the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seems like a really strong candidate.
She is, and I was surprised.
And so I know Hassan, Hassan, he owns Cypher Drugs, so he's part of the Elkhart Education Foundation as well.
Okay.
So that made me lean a little more towards her too, because I know the hard work that they do, and I've supported them in the past, and they've supported me, and me and Hassan has gotten in some conversations about Narcan, and he started training his pharmacists to administer and tell people how to use it. Carries it in his pharmacy. He's really worked towards that effort and getting out information on opioid abuse when people are getting opioids from the pharmacy and so on.
Right. And I listened to one of your podcasts when you talk about how most people that overdose, they do it during a relapse. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that because after you started posting some things about the Narcan, I saw some other people posting about, well, they want to do it and they don't know how to manage themselves and they deserve to die. And then I'm like, okay, but then you brought up a good point. They're trying to get off. And then when they relapse, they go back to what they were doing before. Mm-hmm. They were used to that. And that, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that whole conversation is about, tolerance levels.
Right.
And even addicts not knowing, they get arrested and go to jail for 30 days. They get back out and they want to go back to using because you obviously haven't been through any kind of treatment.
Right.
So the probability of sobriety is very, very low. And then they're released back out into the public without that information. And so then they go back out and they try to use the same amount they were using before and they overdose and die.
Right.
And so by providing Narcan, what that does is it keeps people alive long enough who may not have that information or, overdose is considered an accidental death. Mm-hmm. Okay, so because nobody uses a drug saying, well, I'm going to use enough that it's going to kill me. And then somebody's going to come in and save me with Narcan so I can be sick and be dope sick right away and wake up sober and waste my money. Nobody does that.
No.
So the whole thing behind Narcan is if we can keep people alive long enough to get them into treatment.
Yeah.
Right? Because once they die, there's no chance for treatment after that.
Right.
And so that's kind of that was our plight. And Mayor Neese got behind that plight. And Dwight Fish has obviously been a huge supporter. We've been to dinners and stuff together. And but I didn't get a lot of support from the rest of the city outside of, I'll say Vicky Becker was a huge supporter, Jeff Siegel, Brad Rogers, I mean, the whole partnership for Elkhart County Drug Free Partnership, the whole partnership supported us. I set up panels for them and everything. So there's a lot of support, and I think there's a lot of pragmatism in the leaders in our community. But I think there's a disconnect with some of the ones that really matter when it comes to policy of the city, that are completely disconnected from that. So what I'm hoping to see with this new with this new voting is that we replace some of that and start to develop that relationship again, so that conversation can happen.
Yeah. So this last election, there was a big wave of Republicans onto the board,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those people ran on these far ideological grounds. And in city politics, you can't be that ideological.
Explain that a little bit. Ideological in what sense?
Well, they came in with this extreme notion that everything we do has to be cutting budgets and being conservative with the money, which I agree with, but it's almost a pissing match to see who can be the most conservative person. And unfortunately, conservative can mean basically saying screw you if you do drugs. Be responsible. You're not being a responsible person, screw you.
Right.
You deserve to die. That's that extreme. And I'm going to tell you, most conservative people do not think that. And I talk to them a lot, and they're more towards like what we talk about, like get them treatment. They don't deserve to die.
Right.
Some people, they just don't like drugs, and they just don't understand like the addiction part of it and all that.
But then that's ignorance. That's right. That's not because that's just ignorance.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're not operating from a pragmatic point of view. It's how ideological can I be to score points with the people that voted for me, which I do not like that. So as I'm running, I have ideology, but I want to be more pragmatic. If my ideas aren't going to work, then do something else. All I care about is results.
Right.
Basically. So it doesn't really matter if it's a conservative or liberal idea. Like it needs to work. There's problems that need to be solved.
So would you say you feel like you would operate on more of a nonpartisan basis?
You have to.
Basically, yeah.
So like for my world,
especially in today's political climate.
Right, and I kind of take that from my time leading squads through combat training. Like you'll be out in the woods for weeks on end, no little sleep, having to make plans for assaults and stuff, and there's no time to be bickering about what's like you want to come up with the best solution, but there's no time to bicker about who's the better, who has the better solution. No, like we come up with a solution. If this sounds the best, let's just do it.
Well, I think I think a lot of people, for the most part, not all of you, but for the most part, people enter the political discourse, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to be on the right side of things, and I wonder sometimes if people are just not like scientific literacy is a and I bring that up a lot in my conversations, especially on social media. Like, I just posted the other day, stop voting for scientifically illiterate people. Like,
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah, just stop.
Yes.
Because I think it's important that we have leaders that understand where the world's going, right? So we talk about conservatives and progressives. Now, I think that those two parts, we've been looking at, a lot of people look at this wrong, is that it's either conservative or it's progressive. And I think that it don't have to be. Right. Well, to have a democracy, there has to be a conversation going on between those two spectrums. Right. There has to be. And if that's not going on, then you're not finding the most conservative, progressive move forward.
Right. Or whatever's the best move. Because it could be a conservative move is the best move.
Right.
Like if we hit a recession and we have to cut back on our budget because we can't spend over it. Unless there's some critical things that have to be spent and we got to take a bond out for. But otherwise, I'm in favor of not going over the budget. So, in some ways, it all depends on what the goal is and how to get there. So it doesn't have to be conservative or progressive. I kind of fall on that side, mostly from the scientific point. And I think what really got me over there was the debate on climate change. And I'm just like, I can understand the debate on what to do about it. What I do not understand is people who want to deny it. Because it's there.
Yeah,
the science is clear. It's happening.
Staring you dead in the face.
And what we can do about it, honestly, it's going to take a lot. And I'm not at that level, so.
Hey, you know the people that are scary in this conversation?
Who's that?
You know those people?
Yeah, who's that?
Other people say, global warming, it's negative 45 outside right
now. Oh,
yeah. Those are the scary people.
I heard that, and I'm like, are you serious? Yeah. Like,
hot air rises, man.
Yeah.
Where do you think the cold air goes?
Yeah, it's forcing that to come down here.
Yeah. So but when people make those types of statements to me, it's blatantly obvious, that you have just swallowed this narrative.
Yeah.
And haven't actually done any research. And I think it's important that, especially with our political leaders, that they have the tendency to do their own research and not listen to their echo chamber.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because of their funders or if it's just because it's a wedge issue. Because a lot of things seem like if this side picks it up, then we have to be against it, no matter what.
Yeah, it seems like everything's a wedge issue now.
Yeah, and it really just seems like it's a big distraction from bigger issues that are going on. Because when I talk to my parents, they're both conservative, but like we all have the same core values if we want to take care of our people.
Well, I was surprised to find out just today or yesterday, I can't remember when I came across the articles, but there were several articles that were pointing out about so this whole declaring national emergency.
Yeah.
And then going on a golf trip. But
I saw that today.
And then, so the whole declaring the national emergency thing, there's actually a lot of Republicans who are against this move. And
it's a bad move.
And it's not being revealed to blue collar Republicans.
Right.
The voter base, and I have these conversations with people and they always say, oh, you're always so anti this and anti that. No, I'm just anti bullshit. We need honest leaders, honest people who really want what's best for their community, what's best for their state, what's best for their country. And we've gotten away from that so much that it's even hard to have a conversation anymore.
It is.
And I'd like to see some leaders come back in that can foster that conversation in a nonpartisan manner and say, hey man, look, you guys can sit here and argue all you want, but the bottom line is we need to find a real solution, a sustainable solution for these problems. So that's the type of leadership I'd like to see going.
Yeah, and the thing that drives me nuts is whenever I hear them say Democrats don't care about security, Democrats want
open borders.
Open borders.
Yeah.
Like,
no, we don't.
No, they've approved steel barriers in places where it's needed. Mm-hmm. And I think even in this last bill, like, okay, there's strategic areas to put it. Let's do that. But because they won't give him his whole wall, oh, you want an open border. Like,
yeah.
How ridiculous is that? How can you have a conversation like that?
Well, it's, they want to take our guns. It's like,
oh my God.
And I think, so one of the things I try to do is address those issues and say, and bring some truth to my conservative followers, my conservative friends.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of Republican friends, a lot of conservative friends, I have a lot of liberal friends, and I think there's a lot of, I've said it before. I do believe when we were doing the podcast with Aaron, I said, the left needs to stand up, take the trash out on the left, and the right needs to stand up, take the trash out on the right, and get back, so we can get back to this conversation without all of these radical distractions.
Right.
Because, like I said, democracy is a conversation. And if we don't have that conversation, then we don't have a future,
Yeah, but I can see the ideological divide getting so great because people have the things they want to do and they're so extreme to the right or left that if you're not getting what you want, well, the democracy's failed. What about the people on the other side? Because they want something else. You got to compromise. Like, this is give and take. You can't have everything you want.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is I think people need to realize you cannot be egocentric about, I said before, you cannot take a small slice of the population's ideology and apply it across a nation because it will not work.
Right.
It will not work.
Right. And if you could have the best laid plan, like I like the idea of Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. I really do. But if you don't have a majority of Americans wanting that, it ain't going to succeed.
Right.
Like, no matter how good it is.
Well, and that's the way it should be. I guess, and somebody brought this up to me the other day because I was saying, it doesn't really seem like the real people's voices are being heard. And and we've seen that in our own city council, like we were just talking about with the Tulsa situation, where the people were down there voicing their opinions and telling them, look, this is a very, very valuable asset in this community, and you're going to chop the head off of it. This is not what we want, and even though a lot of those people were a couple of those people's the councilman's constituents, they completely ignored them.
Yeah.
And even the people who tried to the councilmen who tried to champion the idea of keeping the Tulsa Center were ignored.
Yeah.
Completely. And I think we're dealing with a city council that we haven't seen in a while, that has arm wrestled the mayor.
Yeah.
On everything that he's tried to do. And let me remind you, our mayor is Republican. So.
But I mean, he deserves respect of being the mayor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My niece has got all my respect. He's done things for me before he was mayor that I could never repay him for. I mean, he helped out my sick uncle in a situation. I talked about it on another podcast, so I'm not going to bore the audience today. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But
I want to hear that.
Yeah, he helped us out there, and I just a lot of the moves that he made during his term, I really felt like we had a mayor that cared about the city.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was we didn't have the matching council. But now we have people who I think are more like the Dwight Fishes of the city council that are running for these positions. And I think, whether you're conservative or progressive, you should pay attention to who is actually representing the constituents of the city. And we just seen in blatant form that people are being ignored.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just people from the South Side that came down and tried to keep the Tulsa Center open. Let's be clear about that. It wasn't just the South Side.
And I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've not heard one person, conservative or progressive, that have said that they want it closed. They want it open.
Yeah.
And they don't even like the idea of putting the Parks Department in there to reopen it. Just open it back up. You had problems with financial things, whatever. They had a board go through and try to determine what the best course of action was to reopen it. And they had, I heard within a week of that coming out, they fixed the problem, and they still want to reopen it.
And there's some great people working down there. Nancy Van Wormer, not Tana, Tara. I think she was manager down there or something. We were friends on Facebook, so we kind of were having a conversation. I don't live in Elkhart anymore, so it's hard for me to have a voice there. But this podcast is one of the ways that I'm able to still kind of help out in my city.
Yeah.
Moving forward, getting into the council and reforming this council, which is something I don't think everybody on that board needs to be kicked off. I think there's a lot of foul play there these last couple of years, but I think still having those conservative voices on there will allow for that democracy to happen. I think it should be a blended house.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think everybody deserves to be represented, no matter where you're at. I mean, we're all a community. We're all a big neighborhood.
Yeah.
And just to say, well, your ideology doesn't match with mine, so I don't care about it, that's the wrong answer.
Yeah. And I've always believed that when you approach an idea or an argument, that you need to research it from both sides. So you make sure that you're making the correct stance, and that you understand all the facets of that argument. And I don't think that they've given that opportunity. I don't think they've not been given that opportunity, but have seized the opportunity to do so. And that's just not the city I grew up in.
Right.
And seeing people like Mayor Neese down there, Dwight Fish, people who are out there connecting with the community and actually trying to make a difference and reconstructing the relationship between the city and the community. I mean, that takes some balls,
Mm-hmm.
in the climate of the city council that we currently have. It's like it just wasn't happening. You know what I mean? But I'm hoping that we get more guys like that because, and like yourself, because the blue collar or the proletariat, however you want to name us here, I think is what upholds this city and what makes this city great.
We're the backbone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's cool, man, that you come from a blue collar background.
I know a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
Like, this is not my normal clothes.
Yeah. We were talking about it before. He said, I don't know whether we're a button up or a hoodie. So I'm wearing a hoodie and you're wearing a button up. So I guess we covered them both.
Yeah, so if I'm on again, I'll probably wear a hoodie.
Yeah, do that. Come all like 8 Mile M&M'd out and
I'll do that.
Just don't have the spaghetti on.
Yeah, no, I won't.
So, man, that's some good whiskey.
Thank you. It's my favorite.
It's gonna be my favorite, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So what are some of the other issues that you see around the city that you find interesting to address or to bring to light that maybe some other people aren't thinking about?
We haven't talked about homelessness yet, have we?
I think we touched it a little bit, but go ahead.
Okay, so at our church, we have an amazing ministry called Saving Grace, and it's run by a woman named Chris Ulrey, and she's a fantastic woman, and we actually pay her salary. It's not very much, but we pay her, and I've just been trying to find new ways to help her out. We volunteer a lot up there. I try to give some of my time. I try to go on Wednesday nights to help out with the meals. This year hasn't been as much as last year. My wife's got back into that, putting a lot of time up there helping fold clothes. We have a clothing closet, we have a food pantry. Chris brings people in, figures out what do they need. Like, do they just need to get their birth certificate and an ID? She'll drive them around and get that. Do they need to get a room for the night because they just got kicked out? She'll take them down to the Daylight Inn and get them a room. So I've been talking with her, and she's been telling me about how she's with the Homeless Coalition. I'm asking, okay, so what are the issues you see there? And she says the biggest issues they have is affordable housing in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just can't afford it. And if you're making $8 an hour, that's about $1,200 a month, working 40 hours a week, and 30% of your income, which is about the standard of what affordable housing should be, is about $300.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a single mother and you make $1,200 a month, how are you supposed to find an apartment for $300?
You're not.
You're not. They're like $600.
Not anything that you can raise a baby in and feel safe about.
No, and then also, if you are a single mother and you don't have a job, how do you get childcare? You have nobody to watch your child for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is a nonprofit called Brightpoint that will help you out, but you already have to have the job.
Yeah.
So how do you get someone watching your baby to get the job? So there's a lot of obstacles out there, and I think the city can come in and kind of fill some of the cracks, but they need to be talking with these nonprofits and say, look, we know you're doing an amazing job, and they are. Church Community Services, the one that Rod used to be director of,
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Guidance Ministries that just now opened up the day center for the homeless, awesome. But
Southsiding.
Southsiding.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and I'm trying to get more in touch with them. My main contact is through Chris, because she's big with them. She goes to all their meetings. She knows what's going on. The one big thing they talk about with the homelessness, and I've been reading a little bit about this, is a housing first option.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, for most assistance, you have to get clean first before you get assistance.
Yep.
You know how hard it is to get clean if you're living under a bridge?
Well, and you know how hard it is to find treatment if you can't get assistance and Medicaid, stuff like that?
Right, yeah. So we need to be focusing on how do we get them treatment. Mm-hmm. So what they propose, and I don't know how we're going to get there, but I want to work with them, and that is they would like to build, their dream is to build a bunch of tiny homes, like maybe out in the county or somewhere else, with a building in the middle, an office building, which would have a social worker working with them. You get them in first, you get them housed, and then you get them on the path to either, if they have an addiction, get them treatment for the addiction. If they have a mental disability or physical, because that's the main reason why people are homeless, is either addiction or disability. And you get them the treatments for that, then you get them onto a pathway to get a job or whatever they need to be independent, and then you get them out. And if they don't want to go down that path, then you kick them back out and you get somebody else in there. But they have to be making progress towards that.
You would want to take something like that and partner with somebody like Oaklawn.
Right, and they are partnered with Oaklawn.
Are they?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the way Chris described to me is if she thinks that they need treatment and they agree to it, I think there's actually rooms at Oaklawn they can go get for some of them and then start getting treatment. So
yeah, I think out in Goshen they have I know they don't, and John, if I'm wrong, please correct me and I will make the correction. But I don't think they have inpatient for addiction, but they do have inpatient for mental illness.
Yes, that is correct. No, you're right. You're right about that.
So so with addiction, I'm just going to make a suggestion here.
Yes.
With addiction, my path would be, especially if it's an opioid addiction or something like that. Okay, Michigan Behavioral Health is one of the only places that offers the MATS program. So it's medically assisted treatment. It's medically assisted detox, basically, and an average opioid addict would be there with a script for Suboxone, and then they would be automatically signed right up into an IOP over at Oaklawn for follow-up, as an intensive outpatient, and where they can receive Vivitrol from my good friend Brooke, love you Brooke, and or continue on Suboxone, whatever program's going to work for them. And so that would be my, if you got a homeless addict and that's their biggest issue as far as being a productive person is get them into detox, because now you've provided housing for about 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you're talking inpatient detox, whether it's Life Treatment Centers, which is a dry detox place out in South Bend, or Michigan Behavioral Health, which is in Plymouth, which is a medically assisted detox facility.
I'll have to get that all from you, because I'll admit I am not an expert, and I believe that as a leader you don't have to be an expert. You just need to know where to go to get the information. And I don't even know. I have to run it by Chris, because she might already know this, and she might not just pass it on to me, but she might not even know that.
Is this from a church in Goshen?
No, I live in Elkhart.
Okay, so where's the church at?
It's St. Paul's. It's right at the corner of Beardsley and Riverside.
Okay.
It's just a few blocks down from where I live.
Okay, I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah,
I know exactly where my best friend's mom lives right across the street.
Yeah.
Because I was talking with a female pastor down on Third Stepping Stones. She went Stepping Stones, the Stepping Stones program. I was talking with her during my nonprofit experience, and she seemed like she was really trying to do something. She tried to provide us with headquarters and all. I'm like, we don't need headquarters. We don't want to take anything we don't need to take up. But I think you're on the right path when you're talking about connecting with the nonprofits, because there are so many nonprofits here.
Yeah.
That a lot of the major issues are already being researched and have been researched, and there's a lot of knowledge in these nonprofiters. And if the city would take advantage of that.
Well, it's not just research, it's experience doing it too.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
that's the big thing is, like, you can do research, but until you've actually done it in the area and know what works, you don't know if it's going to work or not. But the great thing is they're already doing it. Mm-hmm. They just need either someone to help organize, get them more together. Because I know that a lot of them already organized together under the Elkhart Homeless Coalition. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine they already know what you're talking about with the addiction thing, but maybe they don't. You can't. A lot of people just assume that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And when you take that approach, there might be gaps that nobody knows about. So people need to investigate.
Well, a lot of it's information and getting people informed about different issues. Everybody thinks they're informed about everything.
They do.
So when you bring up any given subject, the person might take a really good approach to it or a really ignorant approach to it. That's kind of a coin flip, you know what I mean? And I guess that would make that job a little hard, trying to say, well, I think this is the best plan that we're going to do, and you have all these people saying, well, I don't think so. That'd be kind of a hard position to take.
Well, yeah, in the end, you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Because and the one thing I learned was, even if it's a bad decision, it's better than no decision.
Right.
So you need to do something, and to just say, well, we don't know the best answer, so we're just not going to do it. Well, right. You can't.
If you're at that point, it seems like you would just say, okay, well, let's try this. If that doesn't work, then we'll try that.
Right. And you keep trying until it works. And right. I'm not saying throw millions of dollars into this and waste a bunch of taxpayer money. I'm saying you can start
test the waters.
Start a pilot program.
Yeah.
If it works, great. If it doesn't, then you learn something.
Well, and like I was saying, there's enough nonprofits here that I think if the city connected with those a little more, you got what's the major charity downtown there? They're going to kill me for not knowing this. Shannon, I'm sorry. Miss Oakley, I'm sorry. What is...
Are you talking about the Elkhart Community Foundation?
Yep, Elkhart Community Foundation. Yeah. You got places like that are willing to, help fund some of these nonprofit efforts.
Well, and they gave $12,000 to Guidance Ministries to do what they're doing with the day center. They gave them half of what they needed.
That's awesome.
And that could be a solution too for the city. Like, hey, we'll give you a grant for half of what you're asking for. You got to come up with the other half. Mm-hmm. And I'm not coming here saying we need to take all of our tax dollars and focus on this. I'm saying there are solutions. I talked to Dwight, and he already has some ideas too. There's zoning things you could be doing. There's land grants you could be giving them. Maybe buy up some abandoned houses and turn those into living quarters. It's very specific, and there's lots of options to take. And the city could be doing it, and they just don't want to.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It's something you should concentrate on when you get in there. It's saying, connecting with some of these nonprofits and saying, well, because they are the ones that's been working in the communities, and regardless of what problem you're looking at, there's stepping up, whether it's my organization with the opioid with addiction all the way around, opioids more specifically. My friend Paul Milnes runs is one of the Cancer Foundation, Elkhart County Cancer Foundation. You guys are gonna kill me for slaughtering your names tonight. Nancy and Robert Taylor over there at Southside Inc. I mean, there's just so many people who care about what goes on in the community that I think if the city would connect with those people a little more and try to help, maybe steer that or offer contacts even, maybe some funding every now and then, maybe some, one of the things I think the city did that was a huge mistake is they changed the rules about what areas nonprofiters are allowed to have events. So basically, the Parks Department tried to turn us down. I was telling you about that the event that we had downtown Main Street.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so basically, the Parks Department was like, no, you can't have it. You can't have it. Anything under the Parks Department has to be something from the city.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
And
garbage.
if it wasn't from the city, that you couldn't have it on the Parks Department, they wouldn't give you the permit to do it. So, me being me, I said, well, I'll just go to the guy above you. I know him too. So I went and had a little meeting with Mayor Nice, and he said, yeah, we'll make sure that you got that one. And you know what? We're going to give you the stage for free. We'll let you use the city stage for free for the Parks Department.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. So you have guys like that.
Yeah.
Right? That are in there trying to do things, but they're being blocked by these other guys.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the people I've talked to, they're not blaming Nice for this. They're not blaming Mayor Nice. They're blaming the council.
Yeah.
And specific members on the council, which I'm not going to name. I think everybody knows who they are.
If you wrote them down on a list right now, I'd name them.
Oh, I know.
They can't do nothing to me.
Yeah.
You can't touch me. But I think it's important that we keep the conversation honest. You know what I mean? And I think it's important that we do think about the more blue collar end of this community because that is the majority of the community.
Yeah, and this issue, to me, it's not a touchy feely like I'm so emotional, like I care so much, like I do care about them, but it affects the community as a whole when you have this many homelessness because it creates crime, it creates all kinds of problems, and just your fellow man is suffering and living under a bridge in this cold weather. Like why are we treating like? I remember the police said if you leave your animal outside, you'll be taken and you will be fined. So we won't leave our animals out, but we're gonna leave our people out. Like how is that a same? Even if they are addicted to drugs and they're doing all the wrong things, why would you still want them to live out in this? And it's not just that it's cold; they get wet, so their clothes are soaked. I just heard about how a man fell into a snow pile and he lost his hands. Just this past week, a homeless guy, because he couldn't get warm. I heard of another guy that passed away because of the cold. So I mean, people are suffering and dying. It's not just they're uncomfortable. I mean, this is a big thing.
I think I've said it before. I think in general, people are good people.
Oh yeah, no, they are, and you can see that from the way they donate and the way they give their time. And again, a lot of them are conservative.
Well, and I think that how can I say this without offending the people who do take charge? Is that people they're so separated from that situation that they're not sure how to approach it and how to be helpful in that situation. You know what I mean? And so people just tend to walk by not really knowing what to do.
And they want to ignore it. It's easier to ignore it than to actually admit that there's a problem.
I don't think it comes, I won't say for everybody, because there's some assholes out there, but I don't think for everybody who walks by homeless people and doesn't and tries deliberately not to look their way, I don't think it's necessarily because they're bad people. I think it's because they're uneducated on how to handle those situations.
That could be.
And I think if it was more of a conversation in the community, that we could probably approach that a little better, I would think.
If they're open-minded.
Yeah. So before we got started, I'm going to talk about something kind of a staple for me.
That's fine.
In the future of Elkhart. We were talking a little bit about, climate change. We were talking about environmental issues a little bit. By the way, me and this guy just met for the first time tonight. A half hour before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Got the blackout and all that stuff. But literally. So we just had this short time to kind of get to know each other a little bit. So just so you know how raw of a conversation you're getting. That's a little annoying. I know the listeners can't hear that, but that's a little distracting for us. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Can you hear it still?
I can still hear it, but
okay.
I can get by it.
Yeah. So anyways, Elkhart has been trying to make a statement for itself for a long time. It's been obvious, and we were riding on this the coattail of being the RV capital of the world,
Right.
right? And we're known widely as a huge a very large manufacturing town in terms of manufacturing, anyways. And that has raised a lot of environmental concerns in the past. And one of the ways I think that we can combat that image nationally or even demographically is by doing things, developing things downtown and more attractions that are more green, thinking, that are more environmentally based. We were talking a little bit before about the projects in Singapore,
Right.
where they built this whole fantastic park, and they actually put together these big structures that look like these big trees, and they took all these different types of plants and planted them all up the trunk of this thing, and they got these branches that come out. And it's just this huge park where they've replaced a lot of what was all concrete before and made it all plant, but at the same time made this beautiful place, this almost utopian place to go and visit. Would be equal to what's the name of the big park in Central Park in New York?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be something like that, but it was more environmentally driven. And being a type of manufacturing town we are, I don't see how we can't start to even try to be even a small leader in what would be clean renewable energy and being a champion of that. At the same time, having this manufacturing community, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I checks and balances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
And setting an example for other communities as well.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we should more look at rather than big theaters and luxury apartments and botanical gardens where kids like me grew up swimming in, and now we can't even visit without paying.
But again, that comes down to do the residents want that? That sounds good to me, but you're investing taxpayer money into stuff like that.
Sure.
So if you can't get the city, I know there's a lot of people that would be behind stuff like that. I mean, who doesn't want to go downtown where there's a bunch of greenery around? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's nice to look at.
Well, we have these beautiful rivers that flow, and people that have lived here their whole lives and haven't really traveled a lot don't understand how unique that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With with our railroads, with the way the rivers intertwine through our city, the creeks. I mean, it's such a beautiful place and has so much potential. I just don't think we're using that to its maximum value. It could really be a commodity where people want to come here and visit, and then we start to get a tourist base, and we don't just have the RV Hall of Fame for you to come see.
Right. And I know, and it looks like they're trying to do that with some of the development they're doing downtown. I just heard that Waterfall Drive, they're going to expand like what they did with Nipco Park, and try to do more of that along the river. There were some concerns brought up to me about how it would really affect traffic with the new aquatic center going in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look at. But I mean, it is nice what they did along the Riverwalk. But again, it's nice, but the millions of dollars you poured into that and everything else, and then you're ignoring the rest of the city. I like the nice stuff. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It looks nice, but you got to prioritize. Is it we want things to look nice, or do we want to take care of people that live here? And the ecological thing you're talking about, it is important. You want to be in a clean environment. If you plant more, we have a lot of trees, but
Mm-hmm.
you have more plants, it can help clean up the air, it can make it healthier to be around. But then again, you're talking about attracting people downtown, bringing them to the city. And I know Ashley is talking about not necessarily the ecological part, but just making it like an arts center.
Mm-hmm.
Make it somewhere where people want to come and do more than just come work in a factory.
Right.
To enjoy themselves.
Well, I think that's what a lot of the downtown, we're talking about the theater, the museums, and they've really tried to structure that downtown area as the arts and entertainment district, right?
Yeah.
And it's fairly small yet, but I think that's extremely important. I'm a big fan of art and poetry and music and literature.
Right. And culture.
And culture,
yeah.
Right. These are very, very important things. And it's not that I'm so against of what they're doing now. I guess the whole environmental thing is just like this big, pipe dream I would like to see where Elkhart went in 50, 60 years. This is just an opportunity that you could say, hey, look at this small town. There's enough money here to do it.
They could add it into their beautification when they're going around the city. It's just, is that the direction that people want to go in? And that would be the problem, is seeing if the residents actually wanted to go that way. You can't just go in strong arm and say, this is how I want it to look, and screw you if you don't like it.
Right.
You know. But I mean, I'd like that. I think there would be a lot of residents that do like that. And again, I don't think it'd be a political issue. Now, if you say it's strictly for trying to save the environment, the people are going to get some pushback. But if you say like, look, you like plants, right? You like going out in the woods. You like going to the botanical gardens, the Wellfield or Oxbow, which I know it's not in the city, but I mean, there's nice parks, River, Island Park,
Yeah, well, the whole downtown is parks.
Yeah, and I live on.
You already have an infrastructure to do this.
Right, you do.
Yeah.
And I live on Riverside, and so across from me there's a linear park that goes all along the river, and I love having the view of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I know most people like having a view of the water and having the greenery and stuff there. And it is nice in the summer when everything greens up and you can see that. It gives a nice environment to be in.
Well, that's kind of where our city started at too. And you look at the Philip Beardsley House, and you read the stories of how they logged down the river, and I mean it was
that was really interesting. And then when they would get here, they would unload everything they had and bust up the rafts, sell the wood, and walk back to what was it? Where is that in Michigan? I forget. Up to St. Joe. I can't remember the city.
No,
was it Benton Harbor? Did they go back to?
Benton Harbor, Michigan City. Michigan City is where the mouth is.
I think that's St. Joe.
Oh, it is St. Joe, Silver Beach.
Joe. Yeah. So, and I love that place. That place is really nice. But yeah, just the history of the city, how it developed. My family originally, they didn't come to Elkhart back. They moved to Elkhart County back in the early 1800s. So they weren't necessarily in Elkhart, but they were in the county for the past almost 200 years, working in, being general laborers. If I look back through my direct bloodline on my father's side, through all his fathers, they were all blue collar like I am, all laborers. So, I mean, I feel like so when I read what happened here in Elkhart, how it developed, I feel connected to that.
Yeah.
Because that's basically how my family has just operated the entire time we've been here.
So my family moved here, let's say approximately 65, maybe 70 years. No, it's probably about 65 years ago. Maybe less. Somewhere right around there. Between 60 and 70 years ago, my family moved here from Vincennes. They all moved up here. My grandfather worked for the Elkhart Foundry, and he bought a house when he moved up here, bought a big duplex on Division Street, which is now one of the historical districts. And my family's owned that house, still owns that house for the last 60 years. And so, I lived down in this part of the city way before it was an historic district. It's a poverty-stricken end of town. My grandfather actually bought a bunch of properties ended up buying a bunch of properties all over town, 6th Street, 5th Street, Berrien. He had 2 houses there on Division Street. He had a house on South Main. So yeah, he was a fairly decent landlord, had owned a few properties. And, when he died off, he sold some of them. Some of them were given to, his sons and daughters and whatnot. We ended up with 2 houses on Division Street. And then they dubbed that place the Historic District. Now, if you look back in Elkhart's history, that area was actually what would today's South Side be.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So when they made that historic district, and it's always been kind of the lower end of town, even though there's some beautiful houses over there, then when they made that the historic district, they pretty much doomed the residents. Okay, because what that means is that when you can't replace the siding on your house unless it's exact replica, right? Which is very, very expensive. And you're talking about a largely poverty-stricken neighborhood. There's probably 1 or 2 residents down there that have real money, that aren't landlords, that actually own the houses. And so it strangled out a lot of what could have been potentially a beautiful neighborhood. And that was another wrong move, I think, that the council made when they made that decision. And it's just like, so I actually ended up doing a lot of the improvements down there a few years ago, voluntarily, with Niece's help and DEI's help. We were able to re-beautify some of the houses down there, get some free paint, some free construction to some of those residents down there. But, the council, and it's not the same people now that made that the historic, but the council has been largely disconnected from its voter base and what the constituents, they're making decisions on neighborhoods that they have no idea about.
Yeah. I mean, I understand trying to preserve the history, but when you're going and forcing people to do things with their property like that, it makes it real tough. I mean, my neighbor, and we're not in a poor area, but his house was designated historical house because it was built or architecture by the same guy who built the Beardsley house.
Nice.
So he can't do anything to it beyond what it already is. And he has that old ceramic roof. So if he wanted to go
Oh
to
yeah, I
a
know
cheaper
the house you're
roof,
talking about too.
you know what I'm talking
Yep,
about?
yep.
So he's on the tour stop.
Yep.
So even if he wanted to change his roof to something cheaper, he can't.
Uh-huh.
It has to be left the same.
Well, people thought it was such a great thing because nobody stopped and explained to them what exactly that was going to mean.
Yeah.
You know, monetarily speaking, they didn't know, and they thought, oh, what's going to be a historic district? The city's going to help take care of us, and the city just didn't do that.
Right.
You know, with the exceptions of the DEI. You know what I mean? Like they were a really great. They were a really great organization that really helped out a lot in redeveloping that, and repainting, redoing some of those projects. But that was it. That's all you seen. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, bam, you're a historic district. We know you can't afford these repairs, and we're just going to leave you out there in the open waters without a life raft.
Right.
And just completely neglected that. So now you said, okay, this is a part of town that visitors need to go look at, but it looks like shit.
Right.
And we're not going to do anything to help you guys with that. And that's, I mean, I would consider that part of the South Side too. You know what I mean? And so again, largely that side of the city has been ignored. And I grew up in some of those neighborhoods. A lot of my friends come from those neighborhoods. You know what I mean? And I was recently asked to join the South Side Inc. Board. I don't live down there anymore, and I'm pretty busy.
Right.
For myself.
Right.
I run this thing and a lot. I do all kinds of stuff. Anyways, but the council I'd like to see in there now, you know, it sounds like people like you is what we need down there.
Life needs to be easier, not harder.
Yeah.
For these people, like you're putting roadblocks and obstacles in their way. It's defeating anybody trying to crawl out of the hole they're in.
And you sat there and watched the hole go underwater a couple years ago too.
I did.
Yeah.
That was awful watching that, and you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And me and my wife always talked about what would happen if the dam burst.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
the whole area would
And
be
you can't
flooded.
live here and not talk about that.
No, and then it pretty much did happen, and I was like, well, and I always thought maybe my house would go under, but we were high enough on our side, we were fine, but on the south side, no.
Well, you're on the Havila side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're smart enough to, build on the high side of the bank.
Well, that's not why I bought that house there, but
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't your intention. Well, we're up here.
yeah,
You know.
no.
Yeah, but we have disasters like that, and I know there was a lot of relief effort put into that.
Yeah. A lot of donations, and our church took a lot of donations to give out, and for whatever reason, it wasn't coordinated very well, and we ended up holding on to a bunch of stuff that was donated for that kind of purpose. And yeah,
Really?
yeah, we were even given, and I don't know if they finally found homes for the furniture and clothes that were donated, but we cleared out several classrooms in our church to fill them with the donations that came in. And
So was that like a disconnect with the Red Cross, or
I don't know if it was with the Red Cross or with the city, or because I think it was the city who was supposed to be directing them to us, and I don't know the full story behind that. I just know that a lot of it didn't go.
Yeah, that's sad.
So, and that is the problem when you're trying to manage all kinds of stuff like that in an emergency. It might have been people just didn't want to come take it. I mean, I can't tell you why, but the point of that is there's a huge outpouring of support for the people that had that from the city and from, I mean, not even just here. I mean, probably people from Goshen and elsewhere, because Goshen had flooding too.
Oh yeah, yeah. They got it almost as bad too.
Yeah, they did. I remember going to Goshen to visit my dad, and the water had gone all the way up to the Kroger from the river, and that's a long way.
Yeah.
Long way for the water to go, and I couldn't believe it would flood that bad in Goshen.
I'm actually pretty familiar with Goshen too.
Yeah, so that's pretty.
That's a significant amount
It
of
is
water.
significant, yeah.
One of the things I think a lot of the residents are concerned about too is the economy being largely based on one type of industry.
Right.
And I think that's an important conversation to have too, is that, we need to start focusing some of our economic efforts towards other things.
And I know everybody talks about that, and the problem is, how do you make those jobs come? How do you attract those businesses? And I know the council gives out abatements like they're candy left and right.
Really?
From what I've seen. It's almost like any big manufacturing company that wants to come here, and here's an abatement for 5 years. So I don't know what more the city could do. I can't make any promises that, because I mean, for years they've been talking about that. The next downturn, you know that we're going to get hit hard.
Yeah.
Because we basically manufacture luxury items.
Well, and now you have especially since the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Right? Now, us residents are fully aware of what it looks like before it happens. We know that when those wholesale yards, those storage yards are being filled, and they're looking for more storage yards to put more RVs, we know that something's coming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And we do talk about that a lot because we manufacture a lot of stuff for the RV industry. Now, we don't just have to make stuff for them. We can make parts for anybody who uses steel. There's lots of accessory units or plants and companies that could survive without the RV industry if they had somebody else come here that needed it. So there's logistics and things in place for other companies coming in if they want to manufacture.
You guys aren't building parts for the wall, are you?
No. At least not that I know of. I mean, we have gotten some new parts in, but I don't think it's for them.
They're top secret.
Yeah, it is important to diversify. When companies come here, they're also looking for a labor base that can do the job. So if you're looking to go into a new industry, but no one can work it, like they don't have experience, because we're all experienced making RVs and trailers.
Well, that's the thing. So I've worked in RVs most of my life.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's made me pretty much a jack of all trades. There's not a material that you can hand me, you know what I mean, that is designated to be used in one way or the other that I can't figure out how to use that, and that applies to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think that's one of the good things actually about the RV industry is, you can work in final finish in this one, and then you work in floors in this one, and then you work in frames in this one, and you work in sidewalls in this one, you work in caps in this one, and so you get to learn a lot of different skills.
Right.
And I've I started in the industry, in our RV industry. I lied. I started when I was 17. And we were making great money back then, and maybe that's something we saw much. I made a post that pissed a lot of people off downtown, but I've been in the industry a long time, and I've been every type of title except for CEO that you can have. I've been a manager, I've been a supervisor, I've been a group leader, I've been a foreman, I've been, the very bottom of the workers swept the floors. I've done it all. Now I have all these trades because of that industry that I could pretty much go anywhere in the world and work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it might be that that's not being sold enough to these companies that want to come here.
Right.
They may just see the industry you work in and go, well, that doesn't really line up with what we're doing, but these workers could easily be trained for that. I mean, and it also depends, like if you're operating special machinery, like the machine I operate is kind of specialty. You can't really learn that at a school, so it's more like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
To learn it. So if
it's
you're
hands-on learning.
So like if you're going more high tech, which someone had messaged me on Facebook about how am I going to get high tech jobs in here, and part of the problem is getting people trained for it. So, and I know we have the career center. We have Thor set up their educational thing there with the community schools to get them trained to come and do things.
Well, now we have the RV technical college too.
I think that's what I'm talking about.
Did Thor do that with the career center, or is that a whole separate?
I thought it was at the high school.
I'll have to look more into that.
But I'm pretty sure it's Thor who set that up. But anyways,
that's smart.
Right.
That's a smart move.
You know what it was, because now you're getting these high schoolers who might have dropped out. Now they see there's a pathway to a job, and then go get that training and go either do like HVAC or whatever certification they need when they get there. So like they graduate, or maybe they drop out and they have the certificate. They can go work for Thor.
I'm gonna drop out. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop out. Went back and got my GED. I've been to college.
I was almost a dropout. I turned 18 beginning of my senior year, and I remember when I turned 18, I wanted to go out with my friends, and I was still living at home, and I wasn't gonna tell my dad where I was going because I just turned 18. I'm an adult.
Right.
And he looked at me and goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm going with my friends." "You're gonna ask me first?" I said, well, "I'm an adult." "Well, if you live in my house, you're gonna follow my rules." I said, "Okay." I had a full-time job and an apartment a month later. I'm like, peace.
You should have just said, "I'm going for a pack of cigarettes," and never turned back.
Yeah. So I mean, I worked full-time during my senior year, and I took the last like 2 classes I needed. But I mean, I was ready to go by the time I was 18. I was ready. So I understand people that drop out. You might not want to learn everything they're trying to teach you. You're ready to go be successful individual.
Yeah. We won't get into that. I was gonna say my experience, but it's probably far off from what a lot of people have experienced in life. But so I'm gonna get into some murky waters here real quick.
All right.
Because the thing, where we at? Okay, we got about 25 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get into some murky waters here because I brought this up before, and I pissed a lot of people off when I brought it up. My champion campaign so far in my professional life has been against addiction. Okay?
Right.
Been railing against addiction, and taking a big chance talking about this. So the RV industry has been, I think, maybe not so much knowingly from their CEOs. I don't want to point the fingers at their CEOs and stuff like that, right? Because they have a lot of yes men below them that just want to say, it's okay, I'm running this right, keep paying me. But the RV industry has been toxic to our community in the same, in almost the same way it's been profitable. And the fact that, so on the lines you see, on the production lines, you see people doing lines to stay up with the production, meet the production, the means of production.
I have heard this.
So, and I've personally witnessed several places turn their cheek. You know, like we'll be in there. I've seen a guy getting ready to put up the vanity mirror and set it down on the lavatory first, chop out 4 or 5 lines for whoever was in the unit, say free for all, and everybody does a line, nails it up, wipes it down, goes on about the business. And this goes on inside the industry, and it doesn't seem to be an issue that is addressed at all. And it's almost like, okay, you got to pass a drug test to get in here. Okay, but the type of drug we want, that you're going to be using to get this job done eventually, because that's the culture, that's the narrative within this. I have friends that have suffered through addiction, strictly trying to keep up with their job.
Right.
Okay. And so this is a very near and dear issue to my heart. This isn't somebody they wanted to turn into. They just had to keep up with the line so they could take care of their families.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
Were you doing piece rate?
Yeah, piece rate.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't even get piece rate anymore. You get bonus and piece rate. It's another way that you can get screwed very easily. So basically, with bonus and piece rate, they can keep you in this pocket. So the payroll is easily predictable. Okay, and they never get outside these boundaries, because if you put in this many hours, you're getting this less on piece rate. If you put in this less hours, you're getting this much on piece rate. And we see that as good, but it's not really any different. You just spend less time at work.
Right.
Okay, so it's not really any more profitable for anybody. But you see this culture that it's okay to do this as long as we can get these numbers out. And I think that's extremely poisonous. And I think they hold a responsibility to that, and they just don't address it.
I mean, I can understand that. I can't really comment because I don't work.
Yeah.
I work where they do. I mean, I'll tell you, I work in a very good environment. We're not work like that. But I can see when.
And not every shop is like that.
No.
I'll say that.
No. So, I mean, if that is going on, I feel bad because you're trying to work to keep up with everybody else. Everybody wants to get out early. Everyone wants to produce as fast because they're being told to produce as fast as they can. And I can see turning to drugs. I mean, you got to think that's got to be a rough job when you're doing that every day, and that's all. And you're working yourself to the bone. How do you keep yourself going?
So when I started in the industry, it was largely piece rate. We still had kind of the '80s culture hanging on, and as far as production and pay and everything. And back then you could knock down. I was 18. Bringing home $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a week on 20, 25 hours a week. Nothing to spend my money on. You know what I mean?
Right.
But drugs and rock and roll. I mean, what do you do when pre-24 before your frontal cortex is developed? What do you do? So, but back then, people were working 20, 30 hours a week and bringing home this kind of money. And nowadays, people are doing almost are producing the same product, but they're working more like 40, 50, 60 hours a week and only bringing home $900.
Right.
In the same time, which is one of the things I think is great about the RV Technical Institute, or whatever it's called. I'm not really sure of the name, but they're trying to teach people the technical end of the RV industry, because suddenly you've seen this jump in technology, and the RV workers are left behind, but they had a high demand for this technology. So then the RV workers were like, well, we don't do that shit. What do you mean? What's a Crestron system? What do you mean you got to operate it with their iPad? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they didn't know this, and there was nothing in place to safeguard that. And so a lot of people lost their jobs because they couldn't keep up with it. Pay went way, way down. And it just doesn't seem there's something unfair going on there.
And I mean, from a political standpoint, I don't know what the city could do to fix that. That's economically everything's being shipped overseas. So we're competing with people, that will take a lot less. And that kind of comes from our politicians that are allowing that to happen. And I will say we've lost some jobs to China, and
The steel industry,
yeah, got a lot of it. And I know Jackie Walorski has been a big push for free trade until Trump came into office, and now she changed her tune magically. Like, oh no, this is bad. Like, what do you mean? You've been writing op-eds for years about how we need to do this, and
Oh, she's a glad hander.
yeah, it's just it's the way globalization's going. It's driving. Unfortunately, labor is a resource, and you're trying to get the cheapest cost for your resource.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you could be making the same profit by paying them what you were. You can make more profit now by paying them less, or you can ship it overseas. So it all comes down to cost. And yeah, a lot of times now I'm not saying that the companies don't care about their employees, right?
Right.
I'm sure they do, but they also have to be competitive.
Well, I don't think the guys that are really high up really understand what's going on. Yeah, I know for a fact, like Warren Buffett doesn't know what's going on in the trailer factories of Forest River.
Right.
Right? I know for a fact. So to turn and blame guys like him or what Robert owns Thor, right?
Mm-hmm.
To turn and blame guys like that, I think is wrong because
they're just trying to run a company.
yeah, and Thor does a lot of great things for the community.
Oh yeah, no, they
really
do.
does.
They do. And I've heard they've been opening up. Is it Thor or Lippert? Someone opening up like a clinic for their employees. They have to get sick or something, go in there and get treated.
Oh yeah.
I think I've heard of one of them opened up a daycare.
Oh, they just gave all kind of money to the canine departments and
Yeah.
like they've done some amazing things. So I don't want to seem like I'm like bashing the companies, but if the higher ups don't know this is going on, this is going on, and that's a problem in my eyes as a blue collar worker. Like that's a problem. Like people are being put in a position where they don't really have a choice.
They just got to keep themselves going. Yeah. So you have experienced it. I've always heard rumors of that. Even when I was, I don't know, in high school 15 years ago, hearing about people in the trailer factories in Goshen that were doing that. And they called it speed, and I had no idea what speed was, but they did it. They're doing it to keep up. And you could tell that they were ragged, and it was just taking a toll on their bodies. And yeah, and it's not a healthy life to live. I mean, what kind of life is that when you're putting, not only are you putting your whole physical effort into manufacturing this part, but now you're sapping your health, your life away by doing the
your
drug.
mental stability.
Yeah, that too. How are you supposed to live a productive life or even a responsible life when you're strung out?
Right, exactly. And I'm not sure what the cure for that is. I mean, more drug testing is going to lead to more open jobs.
It might just be more awareness, and
Yeah.
and maybe by talking about it, maybe the guys who run the place will go, okay, we need to actually be looking at what they're doing, like more drug tests. And I'm not trying to say to get them busted, but like just to help them stop.
We started hearing stories of used needles and tourniquets and stuff being found in the bathrooms of manufacturers all across the county. So then, we started trying to approach some of the businesses. I think it was kind of almost the same way when I started approaching a lot of the community leaders about the problem, where they weren't reading about it a lot. But then guys like me who are connected with people, connected with addicts and people in the real base of the community, could see that, I got friends, my brother died, and then 2 weeks later another friend died, and another week later another friend died, a few days later another friend died, and then a month later an acquaintance died, and it was just like, gee,
Right.
what is going on here? And it was almost like they didn't detect that was going on when I come to with that conversation. And I think maybe it's the same thing there. You know what I mean? Maybe these higher ups don't really realize how much of a problem it really has been, in our culture.
Right. Well, have you ever talked to them? Because I mean,
I've definitely tried. I'm an open book.
All right. Because I mean, the thing is, like, coming from the military, being a leader, being able to see how things happen at the top,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just don't know that they're aware and they're trying to do something about it. Because maybe it's not being done effectively, or they're still planning and they don't know what to do. So they could be aware of it.
Maybe they should take a heed to some of these nonprofits that are exploring these problems too.
Right.
You know, I mean, we talked about. There's been several efforts on various ends.
Right, and maybe they just need to be connected to that.
Yeah.
That might just mean you need someone to go there and talk to them and say, hey, look, there's a problem, and there's organizations out there that can help you.
I wonder how we implement something like that.
I don't know, someone to talk to them. I mean, I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
It's hard.
But maybe if I'm running for council, they might want to talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like since I announced I'm running, people take me a little bit more seriously when I bring up some of these issues.
Yeah, well, when you approach somebody like that as a nonprofiter, even though you're not asking them for money, they're already going,
right.
Money? Are they legit? Do they really spend their money how they're supposed to spend their money? You know, and so for me, a lot of times, actually a lot of our funding just came from having conversations. You know, I had a finance officer one time, and she just did a really great job. Susie Wade, you did a really great job. She just took what was going on and said, look, this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. We're trying to combat this. And she just had this conversation that I always found it almost impossible to have, you know.
Right. Sometimes that's all you need is just to have the conversation. Just bring it up.
That's one of the great things about conversation, right? Is that's how we are able to disseminate ideas, good ideas from bad ideas.
You can't just be throwing on talking points or ideology. Actually try to figure out where they're coming from. Is this a real issue? How can we fix it?
Yeah. What are the solutions?
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you actually want to come up with a solution, we can talk it out. A lot of people, when when you're online and people just throw talking points at you, they don't care about solving.
They're pushing a narrative.
Yeah. They just want to shut you down. They want you to shut up. For whatever reason. It could just be because you're a lib and libs are stupid and shut the fuck up.
I don't know that I'm. Well, I guess I am. I'm a progressive, definitely. I think but I read guys like Steven Pinker. You know what I mean?
Right.
Who can show you how things have actually gotten better for people. You know, and that gives me hope that we are actually moving in the right direction.
I feel like our culture and our country is moving in the right direction.
The stroll may be a little slow for some of us.
Right, and I feel really good about our country. I feel really good about the direction we're going in, and I feel like people want to push this narrative of how awful it is in fear to get people motivated, mostly just to go vote. And that's what drives me crazy is when you drive these people to believe these things just so you get a vote, you've affected their whole worldview, their whole life, just so you can get elected. Like that's
and then when you multiply that by thousands and thousands and millions of people, now you've changed the narrative of the culture.
Yeah,
effectively, and it's based on ignorant statements, big statements that have no meaning. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just, I feel bad because there's such a disconnect between progressives and conservatives at this time that, like I was saying earlier, that the conversation can no longer go on. You know what I mean? That it's just, if I'm a liberal and I say something about the left or about the right, you're automatically going to assume that I'm only attacking them because I'm from the left.
Right.
But that's not true, because I will attack. I attack people. I got into it with a bunch of my friends from the right because I attack social justice warriors. Like, you can't just go around and saying, like I said earlier, you take this small slice of the population's ideology and apply that broadly. You're just not gonna. It's not gonna be successful.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There has to be some kind of gray area that become a common ground that we come to and say, okay.
Yeah. And I think there is big common ground.
There is. It's just widely ignored.
Yeah. Yeah. At least in the general conversation. But when you actually sit down and you talk with people, you find out so many things you have in common with. So many issues that we could be solving instead of arguing about some of the dumb things. But then again, it's like climate change, they're not going to budge.
Trigger issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a big issue that we should be tackling. And I don't know, to me, it seems like that should be like at the national level. I mean, it's good to try. Individuals who are trying, they need to keep trying. Because one, you're making an effort, and two, you're showing the right way to do things. Mm-hmm. But to actually affect it, it's going to have to be a national level issue. And
it's have to be an international issue.
That's true, international too. Mm-hmm. And so like issues like that, they're already so repulsed by it. How do you bring them into the conversation? Like that's really hard.
Yeah. So Sam Harris said one time, how can you prove something to people who won't accept proof?
Right.
You know
It's
what I mean?
fake news.
Something like that.
Or there's
I'm
alternative facts to
paraphrasing.
it.
Yeah, that's alternative facts. What are alternative facts? You know,
Facts that you agree with.
that may not be true,
Yeah.
but sound good to you.
Or they're cherry picked, so they're still technically true.
Well, it's hypothetical truths too. You know, like I don't understand statements like that. Like for me, it's black and white. There's fact and there's fiction.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's that. And
The only
you
gray
can't
area,
blur those lines.
no, the only gray area is what you do about it.
Mhm.
Like if everyone could disagree, like the science is correct, can we do anything to affect it? What should we do to affect it? Like I can get behind that argument. Like, and I think it's Rand Paul who makes the argument that like we just need to accept that we're not gonna be able to stop the carbon emissions, so we need to start preparing for it.
Mhm.
Right. So I mean that could be a solution. Because I mean they are right. People in Africa are trying to develop. People in other countries are trying to develop. And how they're going to do that without coal because it's so cheap or fossil fuels.
Well,
And I mean,
it's pretty easy. There's really a really easy solution to this.
and what's that?
Clean renewable energy.
Right, but it is expensive. So I mean, it could be
But
done.
it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. You're right. So the more of it that's produced, the cheaper it becomes.
I think it should be more like the polio vaccine. You discovered this great technology, give it away.
Well, it's the cost of manufacturing. I don't know if it's the cost of.
It doesn't cost that much. It doesn't cost $200 to produce a solar panel. It just doesn't.
Really?
Yeah, it just doesn't.
I'll have to look into
And
that.
then you look into the tariffs that Trump just put on. I guess, and that's fully manufactured solar panels. So now we're shipping solar panels over that aren't fully manufactured.
And I'm not saying there's not a renewable energy solution, but I'm saying that's the argument to be had. That's the
Right.
discussion to be had.
Sure.
Not the facts. Like the facts are the facts.
Mhm.
And that's where I think we need to get away from. Like just accept it and let's move on to the conversation on how we deal with
I would almost be for a wall if it was covered in solar panels.
it.
Meet me halfway, man. You know what I mean? Let's get some free energy. Hey, the panels on Mexico side, we can help energize Mexico. On the panels on our side, let's get some renewable energy going. You know what I mean? I could almost get behind that. I mean, I know they're going to build ladders and jump over anyways, but if we're getting renewable energy out of it, I could go with that. Pragmatic solutions, democracy. Let's find common ground.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
People are going to kill me tomorrow for making that statement. What did you say you'd have a wall for? Well, I just think that we have a lot of scientifically proven solutions that we're just not looking at, and those solutions are being denied. And I think that has a lot to do with scientific illiteracy and a failing of an education system, and too much. Probably getting a lot off subject here, but too much of how do I say that? Glad handing people. Okay, we don't have to listen to science because this reason or that reason, because your ideologies, because your conspiratorial mind or whatever it may be.
That part blows my mind. That you can believe there's a global conspiracy behind global warming. That all the scientists are being paid off.
Well, it's funny because those people that talk that, so I have that argument quite a bit.
Yeah.
And the people that back that just assume that scientists work for the government and don't realize that the scientific community is a global community. And it's a global consensus. When we come to things like vaccinations, when we come to things like climate change, when we come to things like renewable energy, we come to things like how to better the human condition. This is a global effort,
Right.
a global humanitarian effort that people will sink their entire lives and careers into investigating, and are just blown off by nonsensical statements. And I think that's a huge disrespect to the progression of humankind. Huge disrespect.
No, I would agree.
I think we went beyond city council talk there.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think it's important. These are the things that I think are important. I think we have leaders in place that are scientifically literate, that are willing to have conversations even with people they don't necessarily agree with. That's a huge step forward. Huge step. And once we get that, I think we can get our conversation back for democracy.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
So you think you got a good chance?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I really do. I connect really well with the people in my district. I connect really well with people in general. The race, I think it's winnable. I know Brian Thomas has been there for a while, and he's got 2 primary challengers. I think it's going to come down to who works the hardest to get elected. And I'm going to be knocking on doors every day.
So remind me, who's your challenger right now?
Well, right now there's 3 challengers. It's Brian Thomas, a gentleman named Roger Cotterman, and
Who's seated now?
Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas.
So he's running for re-election against 2 other people, and pretty sure he's going to win the nomination. But you never know what's going to happen.
I want to get guys like Hinkie out of there.
I would like that. But he's running unopposed, and he's in a very conservative district, so I don't think it's going to happen.
What's his district?
District 3.
I know some people over there.
Yeah. You talk one of them into running.
Yeah, something.
I know Aaron Mishler had thought about it, but he decided ultimately not to run over there.
I would vote for you, Aaron.
No, and I would too.
Yeah.
But instead
I'm glad he's working with you, though.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, that's a huge advantage. Like, Aaron forces me to keep it real. Yeah, it's funny because I'll say things sometimes. I'm controversial, and I just say things sometimes. I'm just like, look, I think this is the way we should kind of look at this. And what do you think about that? I'm always open to skepticism and pushback. And Aaron will push back in a way. Say, well, did you think about it like this? No, I didn't.
He does have a good way of looking at things from other perspectives, which is why I like working with him a lot.
He was one of my favorite interviews on this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he really made me think about things, and I think I showed that in my approach to conversations beyond our conversation, and the same thing on the other end, where he started looking at things like, okay, so maybe we need to start pointing out the trash on the left. Mm-hmm. And I seen him starting to do that, and I was like, man. So we really had a productive conversation, and a lot of people didn't even catch it. It was a disappointment. A lot of people didn't catch the fact that we were both kind of like, we took 2 separate of almost the same class of ideas,
right,
and said, okay, maybe you're right about this, and I said, well, yeah, maybe you're right about that. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of conversations that when I see happening politically, that I'm like, yeah, that's the magic, man.
Yeah, it's nice when you can be on the side and still be able to talk about it and point out the things you don't agree with or the things that don't seem logical. It is nice to have that conversation. You don't have to be so locked in ideology to be blinded to maybe the bullshit that's going on.
Yeah, because you can be bullshitted too.
Yeah.
You can bullshit yourself right into a bad idea.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of times what I'll do is, if I have a belief and all of a sudden I hear a bunch of other people just saying the exact same thing I believe, I go, okay,
something's wrong.
Maybe I should reevaluate what I'm thinking. I mean, it's not always bad. I mean, everyone thinks the sky is blue, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the sky's blue. But some other things...
Yeah, okay. So, but the sky's blue, but some people think it's a reflection of the ocean, and some people know it's actually O3 being reflected because of the sun's rays.
Right, that is silly.
So
the ocean's blue because of that. It's reflecting the sky.
Yeah, you're like, it's backwards, you guys.
Yeah, water's clear.
Yeah. That's almost a perfect analogy when we're talking about scientific literacy. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're about out of time. Oh, we got a couple minutes left. Is there anything else that you is there a certain leg that you have based your candidacy on that you would like to speak on, like a stronghold?
I mean, what really motivated me was the homeless problem and also the crime problem, and I feel like it's all kind of mixed together. And to me, the crime problem is really based around the war on drugs, at least with the shootings and putting police in bad situations. I have friends that are in the police department.
Me too.
So I mean, so the issue that just happened with the brutality thing, with the guy getting beat up, that's not everybody there. I blame the leadership of the department, but the police officers are put under so much stress. And I've thought about maybe being a police officer once, and the thought of having to do road patrol and approaching a car where you don't know if the guy's going to blow you away or not, because maybe he's been arrested twice for drugs and he knows that this 3rd time he's going away for life. Mm-hmm. And it's either you or him, and you're putting those police officers in that position. And I know the city council can't do anything about that because that's state law, that's federal law when it comes to drugs, but there are things that we could be doing proactively to be limiting that kind of stuff. And I feel if you can just attack the people that are struggling the most and prevent them from going out and maybe robbing a house because they need to get a fix, or something like that, you're going to reduce crime and make people feel safer.
I think implementing programs for better access to treatment,
Absolutely.
that's going to help there.
Yes.
Better housing, I absolutely agree with you on that. But also the culture of that exists within the police department. And you mentioned you watched the episode with me and Jason Marino.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I think one of the greatest things that came out of that conversation was the fact that we could point out by looking at footage, not just the footage of the beating within the walls of the police department, but other footage and responses from other brutalities around, and not just the officers who were committing that brutality, but looking to the exterior of that situation and looking at the officers that were standing there and their reactions. You can tell that the culture is toxic there. And even the good officers aren't sure what to do in those situations.
It needs to come from the top down, because even in the military, if you have bad leadership at the top of the company, it's going to go all the way down to the bottom.
So are you saying that's Winbegler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. That guy was a turd.
Yeah.
And
he's got a little man complex. You've got a little man complex.
Yeah. And he didn't know, he was not managing, because if you're a police officer and you know that you're frustrated and you're angry,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that if you just release it and take it out on this guy, you're not getting in trouble for it, you're going to do it. But if you know that he's keeping a tight ship and he's not going to let that happen, then some of those officers that might have snapped are going to think twice about doing that. And again, I
think it's horrible that a human being can act that way towards another human being.
It is.
I don't give a shit about your culture or what your daily job is. I just think that's horrible.
No, I agree with that.
I know you do.
But when I've seen stress can do things to people that they wouldn't ordinarily do.
Sure.
So I have a lot of respect for what the police does. I know that they have a very tough job.
Yes, they do.
And we are asking them, I feel, too much. We're putting them in very dangerous situations. And because you don't have that problem over in Europe with that kind of brutality.
Well, the police aren't militarized.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. And that's the problem.
Well, and they're a largely secular society, actually.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not a driven. I hate to put people in boxes like that, okay, so we won't get into that. We won't get into the religious conversation, but I think when you have a society like what you're seeing over there, which is an increasingly more secular society, that those tendencies tend to decline in the culture.
I don't know if that's because of religion or if it's just because of their culture specifically.
Well, not just religion, but all religions. Like,
right.
Secular. Like, I don't care if you're Christian, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're Buddhist. You know what I mean? Leave that at home, right? Don't bring that to the political stage. I don't think it's right when politicians say, well, yeah, I'm a Christian Democrat or I'm a Muslim Democrat. Like, I don't care.
Right.
That shouldn't play any role in it. But when you're dealing with a secular society, it's more like you're running on the legs of your own accreditation, and not your denomination, not your personal ideologies, but more your public ideologies.
Right. So how do you see that play into like the police issue here in the United States?
As far as
like
brutality.
Yeah, it's
okay.
like that's what we were talking about.
Right. So well, in the States, unfortunately, we're in a large. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but unfortunately we're in a large Christian stronghold, and back in the backwaters is Catholicism, and I think there's a lot of toxic ideas that come with racism
From religion.
Yes, because just 60 years ago, a lot of the Christian religions and Catholicism even told black people they didn't even have souls. I'm sorry, 70, 80 years ago.
Right.
They didn't have souls, but then suddenly it was used to make them better slaves and to...
Right. I mean, I can see how religion can be used for bad things.
Yeah. No, and I don't want to say that religion is always a bad thing. I don't want to say that.
Okay, because I am a Christian. I go to church regularly.
That's what I said. I don't want to disrespect anybody. But it seems to me that like and that's what I'm saying, is that's where those waters become murky, is when you bring those personal ideologies to a public stage, because they're not public opinions.
I would see it more as someone takes the banner of whatever ideology you have and you say, this is the way we're going, and you got to follow me if you believe this way. So if you are a religious leader and you say, all this racist stuff, if you're going to be a Christian, you got to follow me, then they're going to follow. But I don't think that comes from religion per se. You can use religion for that, but I don't see it as religion leads to that.
I think a lot of people believe, a lot of believers would say, this is just what I've heard, that it doesn't come from their God, that it does come from religion, but it doesn't come from their God, it doesn't come from their Messiah, right? So the great Thomas Paine talked a lot about how man's religion has intoxicated the meaning of God, or deism, or Messiah, whatever it is, the flying spaghetti monster, whatever it is you would choose to believe in, that man's interpretation of that has actually been toxic to to the actual community and the utility and what deism, or belief in a deity, actually means to a person. And that's where a lot of those conversations come from, where you would say black people don't have souls, or you find white nationalism. A lot of those are backed up by these ideologies from years and years and years of indoctrination. And I don't think that's necessarily the narrative of your average day Christian or your average day believer.
No,
right?
I would say it's not.
But your old white guys, white-haired white guys, this is the type of thinking that they think their constituents want from them.
I could agree with that. And we have a culture of that. So to me, it seems more like they have an ulterior motive to want to push that, and they just take the religion and drag people that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that much anymore, at least from my perspective, from my experience with my church and other churches. So,
no, I mean politicians. I'm talking about leaders, like people who bring
right.
the religion to the political, to the community stage.
Right, and they come up there and say, look, I'm a Christian, I represent you, follow me and do these things in your religion's name because reasons.
Yeah, and I just said the same thing about atheists too. There's a page that's like atheists for political positions or some shit like that. And I went on there. I was like, "What? I don't know about this," because it almost seems as boring to say that you're a Christian politician as it is to say you're an atheist, or vice versa. It's as boring to say you're an atheist politician as it is to say you're a Christian politician. What are the values of the community that you believe in?
Oh no, I agree with that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm
sorry if I got you off on a tangent there.
No,
but...
I agree that the government should be left secular,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you have a lot of people with a lot of different beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to govern the people. So
of many denominations, many beliefs and non-beliefs,
different religions, you cannot be governing with your religious belief in mind. Now, you can have religious convictions that make you believe that certain actions are good, but like a bathroom ban or other discriminatory tactics against homosexuals, like that is not needed. Like you don't need to bring that into it because they are part of the community. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean you can discriminate against them.
Well, Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's like, it's like some places you see he's announced his run for presidency, and some places he's thinking about it. But on every instance that's posted anywhere, you suddenly see these, especially Catholics, jump to hey, this guy's gay and we don't need a homosexuality and we're going to pray for your conversion and this and that. And I think that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Because he's not coming out and saying, I'm a gay politician.
No, and I remember I heard him on Colbert where he said he would like to have a day where this is a non-issue. They don't have to mention it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's just who he is. Move on. Listen to what his ideas are. Like, what does he want to do? And my mother, who's very conservative, I was talking to her today, she said she loves Pete Buttigieg. Mm-hmm. She knows he's gay, which really bothers her, but he's a smart guy and she really likes him. So, I think they're coming that way.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is those even that being an ideology, right? If we're going to put that in that category for just a moment, that's the same thing. Like, he didn't feel like he needed to come forward and say, I'm a gay politician.
Right.
Just like people shouldn't have to come forward and say, I'm this denomination of a politician. What we care about are the issues and how you see those issues and the solutions to those issues.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're a fan of Hitch, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he makes some good points.
Really great points, and one of the greatest.
He's a very good arguer.
Yeah, I've never seen him. I've never really seen him defeated, but hey, we're about done here. So, anyways, and so the producer, we're about to close up. Anyways, it's and I repeat his saying quite a bit is, you can have your toys, and you can play with other people who have toys like your toys. You know what I mean? But don't bring them to my house.
Right.
And make me to play with your toys, and I'll make my children to play with your toys.
And the big thing about that is for Christians to realize if, let's say, atheists were the majority, and they want to play like what you guys want to play, imagine how you would feel being forced to only do things or believe things that they believe.
Right. Well, there's a tooth fairy, but tooth fairy believers don't come around knocking on your doors and saying you must believe in the tooth fairy. You know what I mean? Right. That just doesn't happen. Yeah. And I think that should kind of play in the same role. And I don't mean to be like, oh, your God's like a tooth fairy. Okay, I don't mean to be like that, but it's not the conversation. It's not what's going to fix. We know that the scientific rationalization of the world actually explains the natural world, and that's what we're dealing with in politics. And I see a lot of people argue with me against that fact that their religion describes the metaphysical world. Okay, but that doesn't apply to the physical world, which is where politics and laws
absolutely
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, I think there's a problem when you have the vice president who thinks the world's 6,000 years old. That is a problem.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
And when they say things like we should have Bible classes in school, well then if you do that, you need to have Quran classes in school.
Right.
My son takes world religions right now, and we have the conversation on a regular basis. But he's learning. He's not just learning about one religion. He's learning about all religions and all tribes and all beliefs of throughout mankind's history.
Right.
And that's important.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah. But they're talking about constraining it to a certain narrative, and that's wrong.
Some areas, yeah. I mean, I know when I was in school, we had both world religions and Bible lit, and I mean, Bible lit wasn't really based on like trying to throw theology at you. It was more just studying the literature of the Bible. So, but that was at Goshen. Now I do know there's a lot of people, like you said, they are pushing for that kind of stuff. There needs to be the option. You can't just push one religion in schools. It's a publicly funded organization. You cannot support just one religion over another.
Right. That's where you can get by with world religions, because you're not promoting one denomination.
Right, and it gives you a better understanding of how the rest of the world works.
Yes, and culturally, I mean, it's educating you culturally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a big deal for me. Like, we raise our kids here. We teach them how to think and not what to think.
No, that's a good way. It helps them get by in life.
Yeah.
If you tell them what to think when they get out in the real world, how are they going to be able to solve problems?
Well, we even ask them. Some people have criticized this. We even ask them sometimes. So, how do you know it's big giant bunny that came in here and left a basket on it? Have you ever seen a big bunny?
I'll do that with my kids about Santa Claus.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that really happen? Like, then they'll say things. My wife always tells them, Santa Claus doesn't make technology.
I'll start getting like all economical on them. Like, how do you think Santa Claus gets all the stuff to make those toys?
Where's his funding?
How does he do it so fast?
Right. Is Warren Buffett on his side? Where's he getting all this funding from? How does he pay his workers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if he pays them in candy canes, where'd you get all the candy canes from?
Right. Yeah.
Like, let's do some investigation.
And they think about it. They still think he's real, but
yeah.
And we've argued about that too. I didn't really want them to believe in the whole Santa Claus thing, but my wife's a big part of it, and I know I grew up with it too. It was fun. It didn't destroy me.
Yeah, it didn't destroy me either. And that's why we don't try to destroy with them, but we want to keep that question present in their mind. Like, are you really being told real information?
Right. I want them to really understand why they believe what they believe, not just because you were told to believe.
Yeah, and that can play into the political discourse too.
Yeah.
Make sure that what you're saying is what is really going on, and that it's factual. And make sure that when you make huge statements about major issues, that you have the facts in play and that they do align with your morality. Because oftentimes I see in political discourse on social media is that people would just, there's this toxic meme sharing without any research or information.
They're all just trolls. Like
the greatest one I've seen so far is Democrats are now Killing babies after they're born
And I've read that,
selling their
and
parts.
oh my goodness, it drives me crazy because like you keep posting, read the bill. Here's the bill again, and I'm just like, why don't people read what's going on?
Did you see the guy was like, can you point out the sections? No.
Right.
Here's the bill. Read it.
Yeah, and then they smeared what the governor said, and I read what he said, and he said nothing like what they made him made out to say.
Talking about the Virginian governor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About how he wanted them to kill babies once they were born. Like, no, he was specifically talking about babies that were born that were probably going to die, and it was up to the parents whether they're going to pull the plug or not.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's what you do with any person. Like,
Any person.
You're going to leave them on life support, or you're just going to let them go because they're probably just going to suffer. They're probably not going to live. If there was any way to save the child, of course they're going to save the child.
Mm-hmm.
And in the medical opinion, the doctors would pull the plug, but they're letting the parents decide whether to keep them on life support until it eventually passes away. And he made that statement. It was for the parents. The parents got to decide. And people blew it up to they want to kill babies. And Casey Hendrickson was posting that constantly. And I stopped following him because of that. And I'm just like, freaking liars. Like, I cannot believe you twist things so bad.
Oh, I just put a nasty, nasty comment on Jackie Walorski's page for that.
And I heard she just gave a statement to Congress about that too. And I'm like, it's these obvious lies and twists they do just to gain support because they know their supporters are not going to go out and actually research.
Blind faith.
Yeah.
Blind faith.
And they know it's a trigger. And I believe the right wing is way more triggered than the left in a lot of things because you bring up certain issues, and bam, they are mobilized.
Yeah, well, it's just like I said earlier, you're born male or female, prove me wrong. Those issues are triggered on the left too.
They are.
So,
but usually,
and I won't let them drop responsibility.
But usually
for that.
and like I said, usually that is just used to trigger people or to piss people off. But you're being honest, and we had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what angle also you're coming from when you say things like that. Like, do you really want to have a discussion about that, or are you just here to belittle people?
Well, imagine how many people have made that same exact statement that I made, right?
Yeah.
But none of the people that responded to that came to the realization that you did about the original poster, where it was just like, okay, I really want to have this conversation because I think there's a line that needs to be drawn here that people need to understand.
Right.
And it's not about demonizing anybody for the way they live. It's about having a clear line on what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because the discourse gets so misconstrued, things get taken out of context, and people don't even realize it.
Yeah.
That words, simple word changes. Everybody should read 1984 by George Orwell. If you haven't done it, you should read that book.
I love that in Animal Farm.
Animal Farm, yeah.
They're both really good books.
Oh, beautiful books. I just turned a couple people onto that. Like, you need to read this. You need to. I don't get the audio book if you don't read books. Just watch the movie. There's a movie, 1980. Go watch it. And you'll come out of that thinking, okay, what's really going on?
Right.
You know what I mean? Stay skeptical.
Absolutely.
Stay skeptical.
Whenever I hear a statement, I always go research it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's really inflammatory, whichever side it is. Like, when someone makes a statement that's obvious just to get an emotional reaction from me, I want to know exactly what they're talking about.
Was that me and you that were talking about headlines the other day?
No, it wasn't me.
Okay, it was somebody. I was like, you can tell by the headline.
You know what? Maybe it was. Maybe it was me.
You could tell by the headline.
Yeah.
Where the narrative of that article is going.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. So you can go into that going, okay. So you can almost take out what you know is the inflammatory words in that opening statement. You can take those out and put those into your Google search. Put what's left into the Google search. You're going to come up with a completely different story.
Right.
Completely different story.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know if it's a skill to just... I know other people can do this. When you're reading an article, you can tell if it's an opinion piece or if it's actual factual.
Yeah.
Because usually factual, they're boring. You don't really come away with an emotional response.
Yeah, those are the ones you just want to scroll through.
Right.
But those are the ones you need to read.
Yeah, no, they are. So that's why I like C-SPAN because, I mean, it's boring and dry, but you're actually getting the information straight instead of going through Fox News that's going to take whatever they want to take and twist it and give it to you in a certain way. Or CNN, honestly, any of them.
So I like to take CNN or the New York Times, right, and then post them and then go and look at the opposite story from Fox.
Yeah, and see how they...
Yeah, see how they compare. And you can almost know what's really going on. And then you go like to some independent research site or Google Scholar or something like that and find those numbers there and say, okay, so this is what's really going on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely what I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, left or right, I don't... in my opinion, all media like that, it is biased towards a certain end, right? And it takes some digging to get to the truth of what's really going on.
Okay, so what one of the greatest things I think Joe Rogan said was, why are people giving you news?
Make money.
Why? Is it because they love you?
No, it's
because they care about the way you think?
Well, to me, it seems more of they have advertisers, so they have to get you watching. So like on Fox News,
But they have to please their advertisers too.
Right, so you can't say certain things to piss the advertisers off. But you also know who your audience is. So if you're Fox News, you know your audience is conservative. You have to be feeding them things they want to hear. Or if you're CNN or MSNBC, you know your audience is more liberal. You have to be feeding them liberal things. Because if you start not talking about those things, they're going to go somewhere else. Because all they want to hear is what they want to hear.
So that's the greatest thing I think that's developing now, right? Is the intellectual dark web. It's podcasts like this. We have long form conversations. We can sit back and we can have, we have a drink. We can smoke cigarettes. We can be who the hell we are. Have an honest conversation about things and cover a myriad of topics. And it's not shoved into some 3-minute clipped up piece.
Yeah, no.
Where you're cherry picked and misrepresented on CNN or on Fox News and then championed on CNN.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the future of political discourse.
Yeah.
And I think if you start paying attention if people start paying more attention to the conversation on the intellectual dark web, you'll start to find more truths about things.
Yeah.
Actual problems.
Yeah, no, and I listen to most of those podcasts when I'm at work. I had the pleasure of being able to listen to stuff on my headphones while I'm working. So I'll just pull up YouTube and whatever podcast is I want to listen to for the day, that's just talking about whatever with real people. It's really interesting, and it won't just be one side. They'll have like people from both sides. So even like flat Earth debates. It's so much fun to listen to the flat earther on one side and then the actual scientist on the other side, or whatever. And these people are being real, and they're just talking.
Or anti-vaxxers.
And I haven't actually. Have I listened to that? I listened to somebody who believed the dinosaurs weren't real. Yes, you got.
Have you ever? Do you like hip hop music at all?
I like all kinds of music.
Okay, so I'm gonna send you a link. I'm gonna tell you about it now. I hope you look it up independently, but I'm gonna send you the link anyways.
I will.
So it's Lil Dicky.
I've heard Little Dicky.
Pillow Talking. I'm gonna post a link in the comments to this because it's important. It's important, and I'm gonna post a link in the comments to the Singapore stuff we were talking about earlier. A lot of things. I'll go back over the interview and then post a lot of links in the comments so people can go look up this stuff on their own. But I will post that Little Dicky Pillow Talking. Okay. So when you watch the video, I'm gonna pre-warn you. The first, I don't know, probably minute of it, just ignore.
Okay.
Okay? You'll know what part I'm talking about. When you watch it, you'll be like, is this Cinemax at night or what? But just ignore that whole part and then listen to the conversation that he has with this chick. And you're just going to be like, it's amazing. It's an amazing song.
All right.
Yeah, I love it. So, is there anything else you think you want to cover tonight? Hey, so where do you stand on marijuana laws?
I think it should be legalized, like 100%.
Like, I know it's not a city council problem.
No.
It's way above city council pay grade.
No, but there's no medical reasons why you shouldn't be able to smoke it. It's as safe as alcohol. It's just leading to more people being put in jail. That's all it is.
Waste of tax dollars.
It is. You're wasting money, locking people up. You're ruining their lives, which is leading to more homelessness and poverty, because who wants to hire a criminal? And they're being criminalized.
I largely agree with you, but there's I don't think marijuana is the answer to opioid addiction. I don't think that's it.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
But I'm saying that from my own personal.
Right, that's the completely different thing, yeah.
Okay. So, thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
I think we're done. We went way over 2 hours, I think.
Have we? Has it already been
2.5 hours?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. I don't usually go past 2 hours with people, so pretty good conversation. I think we covered a lot tonight.
I thought so too, yeah.
And I hope you guys got to know your candidate a little better tonight. And I'm hoping that we get guys like this into the council, because I think thinking like this is important, and having two sides of the conversation happening, whereas we're just having one right now with a very small minority trying to have the other side of the conversation.
Yeah, and I say, like, I have my own opinion, But I respect other people's opinions. So just because you disagree with me on some issues does not mean we can't work together to do something good for the city.
Yeah, and maybe they can change your mind.
And they could. Yeah, absolutely. I love having conversations and actually discussing these things. I'm not going to come to your home and just blurt out talking points. I'm going to come to your home, knock on your door, and ask you, hey, this is what's going on in the city. From my perspective, what issues do you see is going on? Well,
So can people expect to see you knocking at the doors then?
in my district, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So be sure that if he comes knocking on your door, that you let him know exactly what some of your opinions are and some of what your ideas are and where you stand in this city and its culture, because your local politics are the most important politics that you can vote on, and they're the most impactful upon your own life. I think Aaron Missler said it once that these are the guys that are going to decide where they're going to put a road across your front yard. So this is one of the most important aspects of politics for people to pay attention to is your local politics. They're the ones that directly affect your lives. So, we've had a couple candidates on this show, and I think both of them are very, very strong candidates and have a very level head on their shoulders and have a good idea of how to approach some of the problems that we face in our community. And I hope you listen to them some more and go and check them out and follow their campaigns. And if you find you agree with them, support them. If you find you disagree with them, come have a conversation with them. Because both of the guys I've had on here seem very open to have conversations about maybe things you disagree with.
Absolutely.
So.
Did your producers run away?
Oh, this is going to be like Elkhart Candid Camera one day. This guy had this podcast and things kept happening. He had a blackout. His producers kept talking.
Hey, but we made it.
We made it. Hey, so thanks for coming on tonight, man. I really appreciate you coming all the way out here and having a conversation with me and just
absolutely
having some drinks and having a good time. And I really appreciate this gift.
Yes, enjoy it.
I don't know how long this is going to take us to drink this, but we'll see. I've had 3 or 4 glasses a night. We're not even halfway down it. But yeah, so thanks for coming. And
anytime you want me on, just let me know.
Yeah, and I appreciate your effort to try to change things in our community, man, and really trying to take a pragmatic approach to things and listening to people. I think that's very important. And as a citizen and a native of Elkhart City, man, I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up tonight, guys. I hope you had a good time. If you like what you've seen here tonight, click on that YouTube channel. Click subscribe. You can follow us on Nonpartisan Conversations. We conversate about all controversial things, all points, all ideas. So if you like what you've seen here, make sure you follow us, okay? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All right? Thanks. Have a good night, guys. And I will see you later. Bye.